Good morning and welcome to the True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn podcast. I'm so glad to have you here today. Good morning, no matter where you're joining us around the world. And also I'd like to say good morning and welcome to our audience in the Face for Radio option. The Face for Radio option is our podcast, which is audio only. It's posted just about everywhere. I think anywhere you have podcasts, we're there. So look for us there, the True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn podcast. I'll be super eager. Coming in hot here. I'll be super eager to, hello, Alan Demers from upstate New York. Good to see you, brother. Love that, brother. Awesome dude. So if you're inclined to agree with my mother that I have a face for radio, then you can listen to that. That's audio only. And if you go to buzzsprout.com and look for me there, you can click on subscribe. Really anywhere. I don't even know all the places where it is. Apple, iTunes, I think, and Spotify, and iHeartRadio, and all that other stuff. We're in all those places. All that said to say this, we're going to get right after it because I know you have stuff to do today, and I appreciate you joining me here today, whether on live or on playback. So, why must believers reject Marxism and communism? You know, last night we did a video, and it was strong. It was a strong video, and it was detailed, and we explained all of the socialism, Marxism, communism, what they actually are. We explained their success rates all around the world, wherever they've been tried, and so we've laid the groundwork. So if you've clicked on this, then you will have, there's a link in the show description. I think there's one or two links in there. Click on that. You'll be able to watch last night's show. And so that is laying the groundwork. That's part one for this. Also, if you click on subscribe and click on the little bell, you'll get all these notifications, and it'll be awesome. Just awesome. So we're going to start with Marxism. Marxism's war against God. Why? Why believers must reject Marxism, socialism, and communism. So Marxism and communism, they're not merely political ideologies. At their core, they're built on a worldview that is entirely opposed to God. It is atheist, and it's and God's kingdom. It's anti-God, and it's anti-God's kingdom. Karl Marx, the founder of this movement, he famously said, "My object in life is to dethrone God and destroy capitalism." Now, Karl Marx, just so you know, was other than ruining the world, was an abject failure in virtually every area of life. So, and most people don't know that. They think, well, what did this guy do? Did he have big business, or was he a great leader of a country? No, he was none of those things. He was an abject failure in virtually every single area of his life. But he said, "My object in life is to dethrone God and destroy capitalism." So these words are clear. I don't think you can mistake them. I think we're pretty clear on this. What he intends. His whole goal in his whole life was to dethrone God and destroy capitalism. Now I'm here to tell you that he was unsuccessful in both of those things, because my God will not be dethroned. He is on the throne. He's always been on the throne. He will always be on the throne. He was, is, and always will be. But make no mistake, the founder, this movement, this Marxist movement, it began with his hatred toward God, and his hatred toward capitalism. Now, when we say capitalism, we're going to define that here in a little bit. Marxism seeks to replace God with the state. We see that a lot. We see that a whole lot. All around us. We see it all around us. And we say, okay, but the state is good, right? The state is, I don't know, like they give me everything, right? Well, they don't. They don't give you everything. What the state gives you, the state can take away. Always remember that. What the state gives you, they can also take away. They elevate government and human systems as the ultimate authority. They say, hey, you know what? We are the ultimate authority. You can't tell us what to do. You can't tell us what we can't do. We do what we want to do. They idolize the state and human systems because they view the state and human systems as the ultimate authority. This idolatry, it's blatant. The Bible warns us in Psalm 14:1, the fool says in his heart, there is no God. Remember what Marx said. My object in life is to dethrone God and destroy capitalism. The Bible in Psalm 14:1 says, the fool says in his heart, there is no God. Marxism operates on this very principle. It's an atheistic ideology that denies God's his sovereignty. It rejects his moral law, and it attempts to build a society without a creator. Well, as believers, we know that any philosophy that removes God from its foundation is destined for destruction. Proverbs 16:25. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way to death. Oh, it seems right. Let's do the state. Let's do human systems. Let's ignore God. Let's deny God. But Proverbs says there's a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way to death. Communism and the destruction of the family. One of the most dangerous aspects of Marxism and communism is their deliberate assault on the family. Marxists believe that the family is a tool of oppression, and they seek to dismantle traditional family structures in favor of state control. Listen, if you don't know that this is true and that this has been in our government for decades and been in our society for decades, one need only to look at the marriage rate 5 decades ago, 6 decades ago, 7 decades ago, and now. You can't say white or black anymore. You can't say, white people's rate is astronomically high as compared to black people, families that they don't, there's no family unit. There's no fathers in the home. Well, guess what? White folks, you're catching up. You may not like it, but it is what it is. Good morning, Sharon. So nice to see you early this morning. Thank you for joining me. The traditional family structures have been completely dismantled. One need only look at the Department of Education in the United States. Let's only look at the union leader for educators. Good morning, Miss Robbie. How are you, my sweet friend? One need only look at the educators and see, not all of them, I'm not throwing them all under the bus, but the educational system is designed to replace. Now, it's done on purpose. This is not an accident. This is, oh, wow, we can't believe it worked out this way. The educational system in the United States of America is designed to remove the parents from a place of authority and knowledge. Good morning to you. And replace them with the state. We see this in all areas of government, but we certainly see it in education. We see it in the families. We see it in the medical systems. We see it in education all the way through postgraduate. Look at the University of North Carolina right now. These terrorists have taken over the campus once again. They are spray painting everything, toppling things once again, arguing for the divestment, the university's divestment from Israel. Good morning, Linda. Linda's exactly right. That's why they want to make homeschooling illegal. Now, I'm glad that you said that. And for folks that are listening on the Face for Radio audio only, on playback, what I'm referring to is folks pop into the chat and comment. You can do that if you click on subscribe and click on the little bell. If you can, you can just put a cloth or something over the screen so you can't see my face, and then leave the comments section uncovered, and you can get involved in that. You can be a part of the community. But Linda's exactly right. Homeschooling, they hate it. The Department of Education hates homeschooling. They always have. Even though homeschooling has been radically successful by comparison to the state education system. Now look, there are lots of great teachers out there. I want you to know, I know several of them. One of them I know and admire just retired after, decades of teaching. So I need you to understand that I don't think all teachers are this godless state. There are many, many teachers that go into teaching with the most pure of heart. They just want to educate children. They love kids. They love education. They love knowledge. And they want to be part of that. But the systems that control it, they don't want to see charter schools. They don't want to see higher outcomes. You watch when the fact that 94% of homeschool kids get into the colleges of their choice. You watch. When you see that, you'll see the comparison is never made. They'll never put that comparison. They'll never put class rank and then homeschool. Did you know Tim Tebow was a homeschool kid? Christian homeschooled by his mom. Yeah. Brilliant guy, superstar athlete, and an amazing human being. But this replicates itself over and over and over all throughout the country. Homeschools and good charter schools, they're absolutely amazing. Utterly amazing. We will absolutely keep Mason in our prayers for sure at UNC Chapel Hill. Can you imagine? Imagine if you're a Jew going to one of these elite colleges and universities, and they're allowing these people who are saying death to Israel, death to Jews, from the river to the sea. They're allowing that. That's state education allowing that. You say, well, you said it was a private institution. Listen, private institutions drive off of state money through financial aid. That's why the tuition rates are so high. Every time more financial aid comes out, tuition goes up. I wrote about that in my first book. Look, the schools and the Department of Education. I'll just say this. I'll make this statement. I really, really hope that if President Trump wins, that he makes Vivek Ramaswamy the head of the Department of Education, and I hope that he dismantles it. You say, oh, that's so, oh. The Department of Education was a gift from the Carter administration to educators for getting them across the finish line and getting them elected. Third worst president of all time. But they don't want you to believe in God. They don't want you to have a family. They don't want you to have mom and dad home. They don't want you praying. They don't want you reading Scripture. They don't want you having a God. They want you to dethrone God and to dethrone capitalism. I said last night, and that if you've clicked on this, you'll be able to see the link. If you click on click on this show description, you'll be able to see the link. That'll be last night's show, part 1. This is part 2. I talked a lot about this last night. Look, we see state control. The traditional family set aside. We see state control. Let me address this. Hillary Clinton said it takes a village. That your kids don't belong to you, they belong to all of us. The school systems believe that your kid does not belong to you, but it belongs to them, it belongs to the government. That's reality. That is reality. And we see this in countries that have embraced these ideologies. State-run education. You learn what we tell you to learn. You learn what we want you to learn. True or not? This is where the government takes place of parents. They indoctrinate children with a worldview that is hostile to Christian values. In contrast, Scripture places the family at the center of God's design for society. Ephesians 6:1-4. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise, by the way, that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. What that means is, this promise within Ephesians 6, chapter 6, 1-4, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. Do this, that it may go well with you, and that you may live long in the land. Get this. Do that. Honor your father and mother. Get this. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Folks, this passage, it emphasizes the importance of family, calling children to obey their parents and parents to raise their children in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. The only way that you can do that is if you study that yourself. My friends, please understand, I know people that are homeschooling their kids right now that I wouldn't send to learn to tie my shoes. I wouldn't send my dog there. No way in this world. Their house is a disaster. It's unbelievably nasty. There's no organization. There's no leadership within the home. There's constant strife. And there's no education going on. We have an obligation. The instruction and the discipline that we're to learn in the Lord comes from Scripture. We're to learn Scripture as a parent. You've got to find a way to learn God's ways so that you can teach them to your children. The family is God's ordained structure for nurturing faith, morality, and love. Nothing is a better witness for the kingdom than a family that loves one another. I don't mean pretend to love one another. I mean love one another. That's so important. real. Not just on Sunday, they look a certain way, half the way to the to the church house. On Sundays, if they go, they're screaming at their kids, "You better act right, you better do right, don't embarrass me." All of this. And if you don't, you're going to get a whipping when you get home. So they scare the kids instead of teaching them how to behave. Instead of nurturing their faith, morality, and love, they teach them fear and oppression. And when those kids get away from mama and daddy, they rebel. It happens time and time again. So look, I know homeschool parents who are utterly amazing. I gave you the example of the one that I wouldn't send. I know a few that way. I wouldn't send my dog there, not even for an hour. But I know others that are utterly amazing people, and they teach their children beautifully. They put so much effort into educating their children. You know, Harrison Butker, the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, took a lot of heat. He was at Benedictine College, and he was called there. You know, it's a Catholic university. I don't know if you know that. Benedictine. There's your hint. World famous kicker. And devout believer. And he was invited there to give the graduation, the keynote speech at graduation. He was the commencement speaker. And so he went through the long list of, you've worked hard in this school, and now you're going to go into nursing, and you're going to, and some of you are going to go into education, and some of you are going to go into science, and some of you, but I will say this, some of you are sitting there, and you cannot wait to do the greatest thing anyone can do, is create a family, find a spouse that God has for you, marry them, honor each other in God, have children if that's God's plan in your life, raise them to know God, to seek God, to follow God, to raise them to be moral people and to raise them to be loving people. That's the greatest thing anyone could do. He took massive heat for that. Why? Because that's their family replacing the state. That's enthroning God instead of trying to dethrone him, as Marx says. When the state seeks to destroy the family, it's rebelling against God's order. Communism's denial of human dignity is undeniable. I know. It's you're not supposed to use the same word so close to the original use of the word in a sentence, but communism's denial of human dignity is undeniable. It's undeniable. Communism treats people not as unique individuals made in the image and likeness of God, but as mere cogs in a collective machine. It enforces a vision of equality that demands the destruction of personal freedom, property rights, and individual responsibility. Listen, you can go back when Kamala Harris or Kamala, I don't know how to pronounce the woman's name. But 1 minute it's this, 1 minute it's that, and then I'm a racist if I say it the wrong way. I don't know how to pronounce your name, lady. Your own parents say it differently. I don't know. Good lands. Kamala Harris, current candidate for President of the United States of America, inarguably the worst vice president ever in history. Good morning, Nancy Flanagan. Love you too. The worst vice president in history. The lowest approval rating in history. The lowest, 92% of her staff left. She can't even run a staff without them fleeing. And now, let's make you the president of the country. Let's make you leader of the free world. You can't do the one job we gave you, but let's make you leader. Let's make you CEO of all the earth. Why not? Fail upward. But folks, it's on video and audio of Kamala Harris saying that she's in favor. She's in favor of permitting the government, the state, to come into your home unannounced, without a warrant, and inspect your home to make sure your guns are stored according to how they want them to be stored. And this woman was Attorney General. She's supposed to know the Constitution a little bit. She's supposed to know the law a little bit, but that's not what they want. They don't want you to have personal freedom. They don't want you to have property rights. They don't want you to have individual responsibility. You are the collective. And this is a denial of the biblical truth that each human being has inherent worth and dignity, created in the image and likeness of God. Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Well, Kamala Harris doesn't want that. She doesn't believe that. Kamala Harris says, look, I can still have my faith and believe that a woman has a right to an abortion all the way up until the child is born and after. I have one question. Why don't the reporters say, what faith is this? What faith is this that you're talking about? What faith is it that you mean? Because you know what? I don't understand this thing you call faith, and yet it goes against all the faiths that we know of. She says she's a Christian. And yes, she denies. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. You have a justice, Supreme Court justice in Ketanji Brown, who was hired. The job search was narrowed down. The filter was, she must be female, she must be black. And then, when she's being interviewed in her confirmation hearing, she's asked to define what is a woman. I don't know if you know, she's a woman. And she said, well, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. Wait a second. Last time I checked, you don't have to be a scientist or a doctor to know whether or not you're a woman and to know what a woman is. But no, that's the third rail of this crazy world we're living in. I talked about it last night. I talked about it in is this the American Titanic? That link is in there. I think I did that as a live or a video. I'm not sure which. If you click on subscribe, you have access to all that stuff for free. Marxism, and that's what these people are about. This is not hyperbole. I was screaming this back in 2012 in my book that I wrote in 2012, and I discussed this in the book that's at the publisher now. Marxism promises a utopia where everyone is equal, but in reality, it only brings tyranny. Communist regimes have left behind a trail of suffering and bloodshed from the Soviet Union to China, North Korea, and Cuba. Millions, hundreds of millions. I have the number here. Let me just see. Let me see if I find this number. $300 to 400 million people in Russia alone. China, hundreds of millions. North Korea, 300 to 600,000 die of starvation every year because their fat leader starved them. A trail of suffering, a trail of bloodshed. Millions have been killed, imprisoned, or starved, all in the name of a false dream. And as believers, we never forget. We must never forget the true justice and equality comes from God alone, not from oppressive human systems. So that leads me to think about freedom and stewardship, God's vision for society. Listen, we're to be stewards over the land. I hear the left say all the time that they're the conservationists. The conservationists, no, you're not. The environmentalists, no, you're not. I'm a hunter. I love the outdoors. My wife will tell you, I go to great lengths to save the little tiny baby frogs trying to get in our garage. I will drive around them in the driveway. There's hundreds of them. Or I'll take the hose and I'll gently hose them over to the side. I'll do everything I can to avoid hurting an animal, and even in hunting, as humanely as possible, as God has provided to me. Freedom and stewardship. This is God's vision for society. God's given us the gift of freedom. The problem is these people at UNC and all around the country, you name the university, they don't know the first thing about freedom because they've never been imprisoned. The freedom to work, the freedom of worship, freedom to pursue the calling God places on your life. My friends, they don't know about freedom because they have had everything handed to them. I have long said these people walking around with ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Hamas flags and Hezbollah flags and all of these things, put them on a plane. Let's collectively gather up our money, put them on a plane, and send them over there and drop them off. They won't make it through the day. They won't make it through the day. They'll be thrown off a roof. Gays for Palestine. Gays for Hamas. I see those signs and I just shake my head. I don't get it. Do you understand what they do to gay people there? Yeah. In the parable of the talents, Matthew 25, 14 through 30, this is strong, folks. This is so strong. This is Yeshua himself. For it will be like a man about to leave home for a while, who entrusted his possessions to his servants. To one he gave 5 talents, equivalent to 100 years' wages. To another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, to each according to his ability. Then he left. The one who had received the 5 talents immediately went out, invested, and earned another 5. Similarly, the one that given 2 earned another 2, but the one given 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned to settle accounts with them. The one who had received 5 talents came forward, bringing the other 5, and said, Sir, you gave me 5 talents. Here, I have made you 5 more. His master said to him, Excellent. You are a good and trustworthy servant. You have been faithful with a small amount, so I will put you in charge of a large amount. Come and join your master's happiness. Also, the one who had received the 2 came forward and said, Sir, you gave me 2 talents. Here, I have made 2 more. His master said to him, Excellent, you are a good and trustworthy servant. You have been faithful with a small amount, so I will put you in charge of a large amount. Come and join in your master's happiness. Now there was the one who had received 1 talent came forward. Remember in the verses before it said each according to their ability. He gave them each according to their ability. He knew what he was doing. He gave the one, he knew what he was going to do. Kamala Harris was given 1 basic job. She denies it now. She was the border czar. It's on tape. We have it on video a bunch of times. Border czar. She had 1 job. She failed miserably. Every job she had, she failed miserably. She couldn't retain her own staff. 92% of them left. She would be the one, you give the one that goes and digs a hole and comes back and says, here's your 1 back. If you want to be responsible for much, if you want to be in charge of much, you have to be faithful in little. We don't put you in charge of the universe if you can't be trusted to manage a staff of people. We don't put you in charge of the most powerful country in the world. We don't put you in charge of that. No, we don't. We do not do that. Why? The one who had received 1 talent came forward and said, I knew you were a hard man. You harvest where you didn't plant and gather where you didn't sow seed. I was afraid, so I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, take what belongs to you. You wicked, lazy servant, said his master. So you knew, did you, that I harvest where I haven't planted, and that I gather where I didn't sow seed? Then you should have deposited my money with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would at least have gotten back interest with my capital. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10. For everyone who has something will be given more, so that he will have more than enough. But from everyone who does nothing, even what he does have will be taken away. As for this worthless servant, throw him out into the dark where people will wail and grind their teeth. Yeshua shows us the importance of personal responsibility and stewardship. We are each accountable to God for how we use our time, how we use our talents, how we use our resources. Marxism, by wild contrast, removes personal responsibility and it places with state control, stifling creativity, ambition, and generosity. So what ends up happening? What ends up happening? Folks sit around playing video games in their mom's basement, collecting checks. They get financial aid. They get loans for college, for their insane, stupid degrees that'll never result in any job. Community organizing. It's a real degree now. They even have community organizing within the black community. Community organizing within the LGBTQ community. Are you kidding me? I can't understand why I couldn't get a job. I don't know. Maybe it's all those piercings in your face, and the fact that you smell bad, and the fact that you couldn't drag an iron across your shirt, your pants, that you can't go through a sentence without saying like 35 times. And by the way, why are you here applying for CEO? You're not even out of college. Listen, these people doing these things all around the country, they're destroying our country. And they think they're the greatest gift ever. They're the smart ones. It's that perpetual 14, 15, 16-year-old thinks they know everything. Suddenly they know everything. They don't ever get to their 20s and start paying taxes and having to pay rent or mortgage and be responsible for someone else other than themselves. They're not even responsible for themselves. Mom and dad take care of everything. That's the people. Spray painting places they don't own. Why are they not arrested immediately? Why not? Personal responsibility. But in Marxism, it's all about state control, stifling creativity, ambition, and generosity. God's vision for society is not one where the government controls every aspect of our lives. He desires for us to be free so that we may love and serve Him willingly. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. 2 Corinthians 3:17, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. But Marxism and communism, by contrast, they are enslaved people. They're enslaved people under the heavy hand of a government that hates them. A government that strips them of their God-given rights. What are inalienable rights? They are rights given from God. Here's your call to action. As believers in America, we face a crucial decision. This is a crucial decision. We are not in a benign space any longer. We are at the precipice of our country failing and falling. Don't think so? Look around. We face the most crucial decision we've ever faced. There are forces at work in our nation that seek to promote Marxist and communist ideals disguised under the banners of social justice and equality. How about just the word justice and equality when you need a modifier before the word? You are a farce. Justice is justice. If you say fairness for all, then just justice, not social justice, not gender justice, not gender equality, but equality for everyone, justice for everyone. Look, I'm a fan. I was a law enforcement officer. While the pursuit of justice is a noble cause, we have to be discerning, and we have to recognize when it's been hijacked by ideologies that oppose God. Look, this November, when you go to the polls, if you're in the United States, when you go to the polls in November, or if you do early voting, because now apparently it's not election day, it's election months. You've got to vote your values. But in order to vote your values, you've got to know what your values are. You've got to know what your values. Look, Trump is not running for pastor, folks. He's not running for pastor of my church. It's a dirty, hard business. And the people that oppose us are not weak, and they're not stupid. And they are very well equipped. And yet, when we take a good, hard look around our college campuses, when we take a good, hard look around our country, can we conclude that we can go up against that and prevail? Look, you can't vote your values if you don't know what those are. You cannot support candidates or policies that embrace Marxist principles that seek to expand government control over our lives at the expense of our inalienable rights and freedoms. What are inalienable rights? I'll define it for you. Inalienable rights means something that cannot be taken away, transferred, or surrendered. It refers to rights or privileges that are inherent to an individual and considered absolute, granted by God. For example, in the United States Declaration of Independence, inalienable rights include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, emphasizing that these God-given rights are fundamental and cannot be rightfully removed. We have to choose leaders who aren't running for pastor, bishop, or pope, but are imperfect like us, like me, but capable of upholding biblical principles. Leaders who respect life, liberty, and the family. We've got to stand firm in the truth. Brothers and sisters, as I close, we are living in a time of a great spiritual battle. Marxism and communism, they're not just political systems. They're not trendy bumper stickers. They're real, and they're destructive. Look, I don't care. The other countries, you have it. I'm not going to send our blood and treasure over to your country to try to convince you that somehow or another a democratic republic is better. I know it's better, but I don't care if you have that or not. That's not my business. I don't want to be running people around in all kinds of wars, getting involved in their business. I don't want to do it. It's stupid. Stupid war after stupid war. Afghanistan was an abject failure. Iraq was an abject failure. I have dear friends who died in that war fighting. And they fought for freedom. They fought for the guy to the left and right of them. They fought for me. They fought for you. But they were sent by a government that just didn't understand. Or maybe they did. I talked last night about the military-industrial complex. that $85 billion worth of stuff that Biden left behind that now are being sold on the world market? The night vision goggles, that was our one area of superiority is we could see at night. We could operate at night. Now they have tens of thousands of them. My friends, this is a time of great spiritual battle. You've got to understand, these are dark, godless ideologies that seek to undermine the foundations of faith, family, and freedom. But we're not without hope. I'm here to tell you, John 8:32, Yeshua tells us, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. This is the truth, and you are to be free. The truth is that God is sovereign and his kingdom will prevail. Look, let me just tell you, I've been asked about this a million times. Do you think it's possible for the United States to fall? Yes, I do. I absolutely do. Don't fall for the whole, well, there's so many hunters. There's so many licensed hunters out there. There's 200 million licensed hunters out there, and one behind every blade of grass. Don't fall for that. Of that 200 million hunters, only about 12% have ammunition for their firearm. Only about 5% have ever harvested an animal to feed their family, to feed others. That's abysmal. This is not the great fighting force. And oh, by the way, of that group, such a woefully low number, just egregiously low number, are not even registered to vote. We cannot depend on them to jump into action and protect this country if they won't even go to the trouble of registering to vote and going to the polls. But what do? We have to stand firm in the truth. We have to reject the lies of Marxism and communism. We have to vote for leaders who will defend the values of freedom, faith, and family. We've got to go forward boldly. We've got to trust in God's wisdom and power. We've got to let our voices be heard. We've got to make our voices be heard in the voting booth as we stand against the forces of destruction. My friends, we are at the precipice. We are at the precipice. And it is up to each one of us. Yes, pray. Yes. Get in your church. Be strong. Be strong in your family. Don't waste a whole bunch of time trying to convince people that won't be convinced. But the ones on the margin, the ones on the fence, educate yourself so that you might educate them. This Sunday, we're starting Sundays with Dr. Shawn. We used to do that at our Kehala, and we broadcast that around the world, and we're going to do it again. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know what time it'll be, but I'll put the announcement out. If you're a subscriber, you'll get the announcement if I put it in the community section of the YouTube channel, True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn. That's one of the benefits of being a subscriber is you get those notifications. It's free. Listen, I want you to have shalom. My friends, I want you to have shalom, but you need to understand what shalom is. Shalom is not happiness or peace. Shalom is the absence of chaos in your life. That's what it literally means, the absence of chaos in your life. And the only way that you can be happy is if your life is absent of chaos. And with that I say, shalom, shalom.